introduction to Python. By the end of this session, you should be able to understand what Python is, what is the history behind Python, what is the scope of Python, why prefer Python over other languages, why Python is so popular, and why are people using Python a lot these days despite other programming languages still available in the market, who are the top companies using Python. We'll see how to install Python IDE, and we'll also try running Python program in execution modes. That is the interactive mode and the script mode. I'm excited to get started, and I hope the same from you. Now let's get started with what is Python. So Python is an interpreted, object-oriented, high-level programming language. So let's first understand what the term interpreted means. So basically, programming languages are either compiled or interpreted. Both compiler and interpreter will do the same thing, that is conversion of instructions into machine-level language so that the machine can understand. But here, the mode of execution differs. Interpreted means the conversion of instructions takes place line by line, whereas compilation is nothing but the execution or the conversion is in one shot or in one go. We can also think about interpreter. Let's say we have two people talking to each other. Let's say the first person only knows French, the other person only knows English. So how do you think the both can communicate with each other? Here, obviously, we require a translator that is going to translate French to English and English to French, right? So interpreter basically here is going to act as a translator, which is taking our instructions written in Python programming language and then translating into machine level language so that the machine can understand. Now, what is object-oriented here? We say Python is object-oriented because it supports all the concepts of object-oriented programming, like creation of classes, creation of objects, all the four principles of object-oriented programming, like encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction. In addition to this, we have method overriding, operator overloading, and so on. Now, coming to what is high-level programming language. So here, there are two things we need to understand. One is low-level language and high-level language, right? So low-level language is basically the machine-level language that is in terms of zeros and ones, whereas high-level language is, it's close or similar to English, or you can say, in other words, it is human understandable language. So now we can also say that high-level programming language means whatever instructions we give to the computer to understand or for the machine to understand, we basically write in Python using English as the language, right? We are actually using programming syntax, but actually writing in English language because English is here a universally accepted language, right? So now once the instructions have been given to the computer, once the processing is done, and once it generates the output, is it possible for us to consume that output directly? No, right? Because that output is usually in low-level language or in the form of binary language, that is combination of zeros and ones, right? So now again, it is interpreter who is going to actually convert that into a human understandable language. So this is what high-level programming language means. Now, next, let's move to the next point. So the next point here is it has high-level build data structures with dynamic typing and dynamic binding. Now let's first understand what data structures are, right? So data structures or data types are primarily classified as primitive data structures and non-primitive data structures. Now what comes under primitive data structures is we have integers, floating point numbers, booleans, strings, and so on. And then in non-primitive data structures, we have arrays, trees, graphs, stacks, queues, and all. So in addition to this, Python is having high-level built-in data structures known as sequences or collections. Now, what comes under the sequences or collections is we have strings, lists, tuple, sets, and dictionaries. Now, with dynamic typing and dynamic binding. So dynamic typing here is we need not explicitly write the data type of a variable while defining a variable. Let's say, for example, I have a variable A in which I want to store some value like 100, right? So in other programming languages like C, C++, Java, what we do is we say int A equals 100 and semicolon. This is the variable declaration in C, C++, and Java. Whereas in Python, we only write A equals 100. We don't have to explicitly specify that the value 100 is of integer type by writing int, and then we don't have to even end with a semicolon, because in Python we get rid of semicolon. There is no semicolon in Python syntax. So that is dynamic typing. Now coming to dynamic binding, so here the memory allocation takes place at runtime. So whenever we have a variable created, we can go and check the address of it using the id function, and every time we run the code, that will be continuously changing because of memory allocation taking place at runtime. That is known as dynamic binding. So now let's have a look at the history of Python. Let's put some light on the history of Python. So Python was invented by Guido van Rossum in Netherlands. It was invented in December 1989. So this is the person, Guido van Rossum, who invented Python. Now, every time a programming language is invented, a name will be given to it, a name will be coined. Now, how the Python name came into existence is the question here. If we talk about Python in front of some non-technical person, they will think that we are talking about Snake Python, right? So that is not the obvious reason of why Python has been named as Python. The reason is this person, Guido van Rossum, was fond of a famous TV show or British comedy series known as Monty Python's Flying Circus. This person was a big fan of a famous TV show known as Monty Python's Flying Circus. So this programming language Python was named as Python because of this TV show. Now, next point is it is open source from the beginning. So what is open source here? Open source is you don't have to pay. It's freely available. You just need to go to the official website and download and install the latest version from there. So open sources, you don't have to pay, you don't have to buy any license, and even you can go and contribute to the Python community. So Python is open source and freely available since its existence. So this was about history of Python. Now let's move to why are we preferring Python over other languages despite other languages still available in the market, right? We already have C, C++, Java, .NET, and so many other programming languages, but why still Python is now preferred, though it has been invented long back? So let's see. The first and foremost reason is it will take very less time to develop. It means here the development time is going to get reduced, and Python programs are 3 to 5 times shorter programs. So it means here in Python, the number of instructions are getting reduced. So it means the code is going to be smaller. That is why every developer wants to learn Python. You don't have to write long code and all. So let's justify that by looking at this block where we are comparing Python to other languages just to display hello world, right? So if you see this first block here, this block is consisting of Python code where we have print statement, that is output function, parenthesis, inside the quotation we have hello world. So here you can either use single or double quotation. It should not make any difference. So this single line of code will display hello world in Python. If we try writing the equivalent code in C, C++, and Java, let's see what happens. So in C programming language, you first need to include the header file, standard input output header files. Then you need to write the main function in main, and then flower bracket, and then printf, that is the output function, hello world, and return 0, and then close the bracket. Same goes with C++. You first need to include the input output stream, and then using namespace standard, and then int main, and inside the curly braces, you need to write your output function, that is cout, and then return 0. Same goes with Java. You first need to have your public class hello world name, and then you need to write your main function, and inside the flower brackets, again system.out.println, that is the output function of Java, right? So if you see here, Python is taking only one single line of code to display hello world, that is print hello world, whereas C++ and Java is almost taking 6 lines of code. So it means that if we have an application or a program written in Java or C++ in 10 pages, the same equivalent program in Python, you can write in just 3 to 4 pages. So that's why Python programs are 3 to 5 times shorter programs. So this is the reason why Python is preferred more over other languages these days, because of the simplicity of syntax, and because here the number of instructions get reduced. Now let's have a look at the scope of Python. So Python has got very, very vast scope, as it is one of the fastest growing language, one of the trending and booming language of today's world. It is one of the best programming language for application development. So let's have a look at applications that are using Python. Let's talk about social media. So we have so many different applications, social media applications that are using Python. We have Facebook, we have WhatsApp, we have Netflix, and we have Dropbox, we have Instagram. So all these applications are using Python in one or the other way. Then Python can be used in web development. So Python has got 2 flavors of web frameworks. One is Flask and the other is Django. Out of this, Django is the trending one because it has got a lot of built-in tools and functionalities. And in addition to these frameworks, we require front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, React.js to build beautiful websites using Python. Then Python can also be used in game development. So in Python, we have a module or a library known as Pygame, using which we can build a lot of games. Then we can go for system administration, scientific numeric computing using libraries or modules like NumPy, SciPy, Pandas, and all. Python can be used in automation testing, manual testing, geographical information system, mapping, and a lot of things you can do Python. Here we have mentioned only just the basics. There are a lot of things, lots and lot of things you can do using Python. As I already mentioned, Python has got vast scope in different areas of implementation. It can be used in GUI applications as well, using the Kinter module. It can be used in data analysis, visualization, using analysis visualization libraries. It can be used in DevOps engineering. It can be used in machine learning in order to predict the models. And there are a lot of things you can do using Python. Now, who uses Python? Let's go and see who are the top companies using Python. So first comes Google. So what actually Google here is, Google is a search engine. Everybody knows that Google is a search engine. So what we do on Google, we go to Google, we write a query. The query will be taken and forwarded to the Google server, and the processing will be done, and we get back the results in fraction of seconds, right? So Google is extensively using Python in its web searching algorithm. So whatever I have said, like taking the query, forwarding to the Google server, and giving back the results in fraction of second, this complete algorithm is written in Python. Next, we have the hardware companies like Intel, Cisco, HP, Qualcomm. So these companies are using Python for hardware testing. Then we have IBM that is using Python for some of its factory tool applications. And then we have YouTube. So what is the use of YouTube? So YouTube, what people do on YouTube, they go to YouTube. They do searching, but first of all, they create their channels. right? People need to have channels in order to upload their videos or share their videos. So YouTube's video sharing service is written in Python. So Python is used by companies in real revenue generating products. So apart from these companies, we have so many other companies that are using Python. We have Instagram, Facebook, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Uber, Reddit, Netflix, Pinterest. So all of these companies are using Python in one or the other way as a main language or at least supporting language, and they are generating real revenue. That is, they're earning a lot of amount using Python programming language.